This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. Learn more online or subscribe at beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew. We're in Grand Rapids, Michigan again for this week's episode, and joining me is Edwin Collazo. Is it Collazo or Collazo?
It's Collazo.
Collazo.
And then, but I live in West Michigan, so it's Collazo.
Okay.
Or Van Collazo.
Well, what's the history of that name?
Both my parents are Puerto Rican. I was born in Ohio.
Yeah.
They weren't born in Ohio. So it's Puerto Rican, Spanish. It actually means Milk Brothers.
Milk Brothers.
So you know what a Milk Brother is?
No.
Milk Brother is typically royalty had like a midwife.
Yeah.
And so the midwife had a baby, they had a baby, and she feeds both babies. Those two babies are Milk Brothers.
Okay.
And so
Well, all right.
it's
I've not heard that story before.
I imagine that's just the one my dad chose to tell.
Yeah.
Because it's funny.
Okay.
And so that's where I got it.
Well, we're at City Built Brewery here in Grand Rapids. And, as I was doing some research for this trip, you guys got recommended as focusing on progressive styles. And that's exactly what you do. You are, pushing the envelope up here with flavor-forward beers across the spectrum, sour, stout, hazy IPA. And now you're even making lager beers, and doing that kind of thing too.
We added 2 lager tanks last year.
Yeah.
Which are full, which is great.
Nice. Anyway, we're going to talk about all of those approaches. But first, for years, G&D Chillers has chilled the beers you love. Partnering with 3,000 plus breweries across the country, they are proud of the cool partnerships they've built over the past 30 years. They know brewing doesn't stop at 5 o'clock, and nor do they. G&D uses quality components, expert craftsmanship, and constant innovation. With 24/7 service and support, your brewery will never stop. Remote monitor your chiller for simple and fast access to all the information you need, providing you with the peace of mind your operation is running smoothly. Reach out for a quote today at gdchillers.com or call to discuss your next project. Also, this episode is brought to you by BSG, distributors of TNS hop oils. Looking for a way to save on freight, reduce waste, all while improving beer quality? Then change your brewing game with TNS hop oils. Visit bsgcraftbrewing.com to learn how TNS hop oils can make your beer and your margins better. And before we start, I want to thank Experience Grand Rapids for making this trip possible. To plan your own beer trip to Grand Rapids, start at experiencegr.com. So, Edwin, we normally start this off with some background and history. Talk to me about your beer history. You know, was there an aha moment with craft beer, and then what led you down the path to starting a brewery?
So my education is in education. So I taught for 8 years. I was a PE and health teacher. I also had another degree in child development. So I taught psychology and some other ancillary classes in high school. Last 3 years of teaching was in a prison, which was not what you think. It was pretty easy. I read lots of books, didn't teach very much. I was a facilitator. And then moved into financial advising or financial industry with Northwestern Mutual. And while I was there, my business was working with other business owners. And my job was to hear about their stuff, their issues as business owners and how I could help them protect and create financial security for their businesses. But in that, I really enjoyed the conversations with the people I was with and realized I didn't want to be chasing these guys. I wanted to be like these guys.
Sure.
And so I started to look for a business to buy or contribute to or get involved in, and just was not passionate about helping people create financial security. And all along the way, my son is 19. So when he was 1, I started home brewing. And through that, got to meet a lot of cool people and learned different brewing techniques from what eventually became one of my partners. He was my neighbor. He's who taught me how to homebrew. I really wanted to take beer for Memorial Day to some friend, like just to go hang out and party. So my first homebrew was, I forgot the name of the beer from England, Newcastle Brown. And then second was just like an IPA. The first one was good. Second one kind of sucked. But so, with time I got better. Dave was looking to raise money. He had a partner who had decided to make some changes in his life, left the state. So there was an opportunity to partner with him. I had been basically sharing ideas, hoping that people believed him, and wrote a check for 7 years before that. And so essentially I was like, hey, I think I can raise money.
Yeah.
And so can I be your partner?
You've just been interfacing with a whole bunch of people trying to find things to do with their money. And so, yeah.
Absolutely. And so he said yes. And so then I walked into what was probably my biggest client's office and was like, hey, meet your new financial advisor. You already know him because he comes with me on these office meetings. And he's kind of looked at me puzzledly, why? And I'm like, hey, I'm about to step outside of my role and break the rules. I know everything about you, and you have a bunch of money to sit in an account, and I think I can find a place for it. Shared the idea, and he agreed. So I raised like half of their goal in like 30 days.
Normally when we do this history, I hear about how somebody was an engineer and this is their second career is home brewing.
Yeah.
This is actually the most interesting way to come at it from a financial advisor who actually does have access to, potential clients that would be perfect for investing and helping support a brewery. I mean, it's actually kind of genius.
Yes. I mean, thank you. I don't, that was the cards I had.
Sure.
So I just played my cards. I really was trying to buy this company called Workhorse Irons, and they do they make tattoo rigs.
Yeah.
Ink and needles. And so I met a really good friend now because I was trying to buy his business and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And so, but through that process, I was like, man, I think I can, because for that I raised like $400,000 pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I didn't want that money is what I learned. It was not good for long-term, not a good
Sure.
idea. And so, so I had also been involved in a Facebook group, oddly enough, called Hopheads out of San Diego. And everyone in this group were in the industry.
Yeah.
And so I just was, as a voyeur, was watching what they were doing out west.
Yeah.
And seeing how different it was from what we were doing in West Michigan or what was being done in West Michigan at the time.
What around 1 year with this, or what time frame are we talking about?
Man, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Probably.
Like 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like they were, I got to be in that group because I was not in the industry.
Right.
I believe because I was a Michigan guy willing to send beer. And my friend who got me in the group, he wasn't in the industry, but he was a huge beer guy. His name's Dan Miller. He works for Alliance Beverage now, but neither one of us were part of this elite group of brewery people.
Sure.
And longingly looked and wanted to be in the industry, I think. And so I got a lot of the ideas from listening to and watching what they were posting. And, and so when we raised this money and I started to really look at the business plan. I'm like, this is not a good plan. We kind of worked backwards. So we had money and then realized this isn't near enough money and the idea isn't big enough. So 2-barrel brew house with what kind of felt like Founder's original plan, peanuts on the ground.
Right.
Not a hole. They weren't a hole in the wall because they were actually in this neighborhood before they moved to where they're at now. And I just felt like we needed to think bigger. And so 2-barrel became a 10-barrel. No Food became a Puerto Rican inspired full kitchen, which is funny because literally on Tuesday, that menu will be dead and our new menu will start. And so we have been doing this test kitchen since COVID, or pop-up ghost kitchen.
Yeah.
It depends on where you were in COVID. What you call, like, it was a ghost kitchen during COVID. Ours was open just kind of after it wasn't a big deal and people could come inside again.
Yeah.
So we called it a pop-up.
Yeah.
But we've been testing this menu for 2.5 years. It was something that we'd serve one Creole dish Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or until it ran out.
Yeah.
And we ran out every weekend for 2.5 years. And so we're like, maybe we should think about running our kitchen in a way that's maybe a little bit less labor intensive, especially with what we're experiencing now.
Sure.
We need less people to do more things. And so having a different menu would make that, give us that ability to save money, but also provide something that we really were excited about. Our chef is more excited to do that type of style of food.
Yeah.
We really taught him how to do our food, Puerto Rican food. But we're seeing, and we aren't really Puerto Rican. We're Sorta Rican.
Sorta Rican,
because we have tacos on our menu, and Puerto
Yeah.
Ricans do not eat tacos. Like, I mean, they might go to Taco Bell or whatever and have a taco, but
Sure.
like, that is not part of our main food group.
right.
So he's excited, and so we're excited about these changes happening.
Sure.
But this idea to do food was outside of the original idea, and so what started it out as a $500,000 or $600,000 brewery idea actually grew into a $1.5 million idea. And so I raised about $1.7 million to get started. We only borrowed $150,000 from the bank.
Wow.
We're now looking to borrow way more money. So if you're a banker looking, you should hit up Citibuilt, because we're looking to consolidate some loans and get some help and grow. But
I'm sure there's some bankers out there that'll hear that and reach out to you. I know a few who probably would. Actually.
Edwin at citybuiltbrewing.com.
Yeah.
So anyways, so we're just at a different place in our business, but that was a great start. We had some bad advisors around us in the beginning. And as a formal advisor, like, my advice is, man, you should put people around you that you trust and you value their information or value their opinion, and let them, because they help businesses.
Right.
So I thought I had that. In the end, I've learned, they all learned how to do their jobs on my job. We had very bad accounting advice, very bad legal advice, and our builder didn't do what he should do.
Yikes.
And so we were supposed to open in 2016 in June. We did not open until May of 2017.
Wow.
And so, and that's a whole podcast. Like, that's a whole other conversation.
Yes.
Because, it got to a point where, like, I can't really legally say all the details.
Yeah.
However, man, everyone thinks that brewers just print money because, you get a great return on the tap, and the reality is just,
The reality is you were probably spending, 24 months plus working, getting this up and running when you had no revenue coming in.
That's right.
And it was all going out. And that's a lot of money to spend with nothing coming in for a long amount of time.
That's correct.
And, and then you got nervous investors that you have to manage because you're spending everybody's money.
Yeah.
And the amount of pressure is huge. And then you open up and you I hope this hits.
Yeah.
I hope it lands, so that we can connect with people and make this thing actually work and get that revenue flowing.
That's right. That's exactly what happened. We opened up. It was nuts. It looked like we're winning. It looks like we're winning, I think, still. But, man, the weight of that start.
Yeah.
We carry that a little bit today, but we're almost out of that. But then you throw a pandemic in there, and that kind of slows things down.
Yeah.
So
6 years in now, and you're still feeling some of that weight.
I think my investors are.
Yeah.
Right? Because, what should have been profitable years in the beginning, we basically started $500,000 in the hole.
Yeah.
And so first year, $225,000-ish loss. But really it was just paying off stuff.
Sure.
And then second year is about $250,000. And then since then, a lot better experience.
Right.
And so, but, to go back to your investors who saw, these other breweries open and make money, or it looks like
thought they were making money. Yeah.
And so their ability to endure the risk of making us bigger.
Sure.
Right. It's iffy. And so some are on board, but some they're like, man, I'm kind of wore out.
Yeah.
And so which I get it. And so
it's a common story, and I hear it all the time. even with our business, we had to borrow more money early on in our business to keep things, because I think everybody who goes into business has a little bit rosier revenue projections than actually materialize, and and then you borrow some more money, and then to kind of get through, and you have an idea and this vision of how you're going to bridge through that, and then often it takes, it's really not a lie when they say, 5 years is kind of, 5 or 7 years, even sometimes kind of that magic point where you're either going to make it or you're not going to make it. And you kind of know at that point. And,
right. I'll let you know.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
we've done well to build I think a pretty strong brand. I think, and I think in our brewer community, I think we have the respect of our peers.
Yeah.
so we have good right? We have momentum.
It was your peers that recommended that we have this conversation right now. So yes, I agree with you on that.
You told me the list, and like that made me feel really good to be part of that list. So those are really cool people and talented and have done just some neat things. So yeah, like we're at a point where we just grew. So we just grew our capacity by about 250%. So we have way more brewing space, but in a very small space. So it's, I think we're about the most inefficient brewery in town because we don't have those fun things like a silo and, that makes our grain cheaper and whatever. So, we try to be as efficient as we can with the inefficiency that we exist in.
Sure.
So.
Well, let's talk about the beer program, and I want to kind of talk about as you're planning this and you're looking for where the opportunity was and something that you connect with coming out of a little bit of a geeky beer approach within that kind of broader beer trading world of whatnot. Thinking about what you were going to make here at City Built to be a little bit different than some of the other breweries. Before we do that, AccuBrew is a new analytical tool unlike anything else on the market that gives brewers like you unprecedented insight into your fermentation process. You can remotely monitor sugar conversion, temperature, and clarity to ensure consistency by quickly detecting out-of-range conditions. The AccuBrew system creates and stores permanent records so you can compare every batch. AccuBrew goes beyond a simple measurement tool. AccuBrew helps you monitor, document, and manage your fermentation process in real time. Also, at ProBrew, they believe your brewery deserves equipment as unique as the drinks that you craft. That's why their solutions are specifically designed to help you brew your beer, not someone else's. From brewing to fermenting to carbonating and can filling, ProBrew's customizable equipment empowers breweries to expand operations at their own pace. For more information, visit www.probrew.com or email contactus@probrew.com to learn exactly how they can take your operations to the next level. ProBrew, brew your beer. And if you hear Old Orchard mentioned in the brewing community, don't be surprised. The flavored craft juice concentrate blends from Old Orchard have shipped to over 46 states from right here in Beer City, USA. Their new brewing customers often mention discovering Old Orchard through the word-of-mouth recommendation of another brewer. To join the core of Old Orchard's brewing community, learn more at oldorchard.com/brewer. And they are literally just up the road a few miles from right here in Grand Rapids. So, yeah. Anyway, let's talk about you're building this plan. You want to create a beer identity for City Build, and you want it to kind of stand out in a city that's known for beer because there are a lot of breweries around here. What was the kind of fundamental idea, and how did you set about setting a specific identity for City Build beer?
So what we are today is very different from where we started. When we first started, my partner was the head brewer and he was in charge of the brewery, and his hope, dream, and idea was to do beer centered around like herbs. So we had like a green tea chamomile beer. We did like a blueberry basil sour. We did, things like that. We made a chaga stout, which is actually, it was really good.
Yeah.
We just couldn't make it the same twice. And so that was a problem. And so we got it about at 2019. I was like, hey, this isn't exciting for me, and I think we can do this, but we didn't have a 4-ingredient non-adjunct IPA in 2 years. And so, it was good, but was it dipping into what people wanted? And I don't think so.
Yeah.
And so, we're measuring like beers per person, right? Beers per visit. And I'm like, it's gotta be better than this. And so let's learn how to make a hazy IPA and do it.
Yeah.
And so, and he wasn't fully on board with that because it was so outside of what he really wanted to do. And I don't blame him.
Sure.
But after a while, he actually decided to leave. We hired a new brewer. I took over the brewery, and I'm like, you're going to learn how to do this, and we're going to do collabs until we learn how to do it. And so we were fortunate that breweries like Drafting Table and Ascension Brewing, who had great reputations, they were early adapters in doing collabs with us.
Okay.
And willing to share information and insight. Nick at Holmes,
yeah,
he's awesome. And
He did podcasts with him a while back. We just talked about Smooge most of the time, but
I'm sure that breaks his heart a little bit, but and then Smooch is killing it. It's awesome. So that said, we had these really cool up and coming new school, I guess, breweries willing to share their ideas, willing to share their process. And so we started, COVID was a great time for us to pivot. Everything stopped for a week. And then all of a sudden we had, all right, what are we going to be now? And so I used to have conversations with other brewers in town. I'm like, after this, we could just be whatever we want.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone was going to first lose this year, which I forget 2020 happened because, I worked every day, all the days, all the hours.
Yeah.
But most people, it's like you lose your time. And so this is our chance to be what we want. And so we started to, it started with the Fibonacci series. So we did, I wanted to see what it was like to boil beer for 3, 6, 12, and 24 hours. How's that look? What's the, same grain bill, turned out not to be the same yeast because you got to get it finished and this and that. But so we started to do that. And so 3 hour was a non-adjunct stout. 6 hour was going to be coconut vanilla. 13 was going to be peanut butter. 21 was going to be like everything but the kitchen sink, adjunct. And then let's see what happens. So then we get our art back from the artist, and he tells a story. I love the artist that we had that year. His name was Kyle DeGroff Designs. And he told us every time we get art, he'd apologize first. Sorry, I was thinking this. And then he'd tell why he was thinking that. And so he talked about numerology. And as he described it, I'm reading it to my general manager, and he's like, that's the Fibonacci sequence. And so we looked that up, and we're like, why call it 3, 6, 12, 3, 6, 12? Let's call it 3, 5, 13, 21. And then it follows a series. It matches the art. We created this whole idea around the packaging.
Yeah.
And really the names and what we decided to do was dictated by the artist. And it crushed. It was great. Yeah. That was a beer that we were selling for $35 a 4-pack right at the close. So it released 3 weeks or in March. So 2 weeks after the 13th when we were closed down. And we sold it all in 2 days. And I'm like, oh.
All in package, all to go.
All in cans.
Yeah.
And so we thought this is a good idea. And then people started to complain. Well, that's
good
not.
That you had a canning line at that point then.
Man, I felt like a genius because I was begging my partner. I was like, we have to do this. We have to do this. And then we were using a mobile canning service before that. And it was so expensive. And so we went to get a loan. They're like, do you use a mobile service? I'm like, yeah. Do you have any paid receipts? Oh, yeah. Or invoices? Yeah. Oh, you qualify. Because if you can afford that, then you can afford half that. And now you have access to the canning line whenever you want. So thank God we had a canning line.
What do you guys can on?
We can on a micro canner, which is actually made right here in Greenville, Michigan. So 20 minutes down the road north.
Nice.
They're right across the street from Cedar Springs Brewing.
Ah, okay.
And so,
they pop up there this afternoon.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
They were very helpful in that process. They've been here 4 times to help train us.
Yeah.
So every time I get a new brewer, you'd think I'd learn. Anyway. So, that said, they've been great partners. Right. And so from there, then we went on and did the Crown series. So I was listening to Run the Jewels.
Yeah.
That moment in life, and it seemed to drive me to work and drive me home.
Yeah.
And there's a song called Crown, and there's these lyrics, and in there, these lyrics are into the haze, into the murk, into the fray. And I'm like, that's a hazy IPA. In fact, those are double hazy IPA. And so we made those, and we really leaned hard into their IP.
Yeah, you got into a little trouble on that.
I got a little bit of trouble, but man, it make people start paying attention to City Bill. It was wild.
And it worked out amicably at the end.
Man, they were so gracious.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best way to put it.
They did call you out, but you guys ended up friends.
Yes, they did. They Amici is their manager, and he's actually from Ann Arbor. Yeah. Which I think helped. And then their marketing person is actually the marketing person for Pipeworks. So she had a really good kind of reference for what brewers, what they are.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're not just printing money.
Sure.
There's slim margins like everything else, especially when you start going into packaged product and into distribution. And so she, I think, on some level advocated for us. So, I mean, between the stouts and that hazy series, we started to think this is where this is the direction we should go. And then we were already doing fruited sours. We just started to back sweeten them instead of ferment the fruit out. That's literally the biggest difference. And people seem to like that. That was kind of the impetus, and that was the change in 2020.
Yeah.
And we had the time to do it because we were really having a hard time keeping up. We only had 4 10-barrel fermenters.
Yeah.
And so try having mainstays with 4 10-barrel and new beer.
Right.
And so
what's the creative process then look like? I mean, it sounds like you're very idea driven, where you come up with a good beer idea, and then you build the recipe and design the beer around an idea. And it sounds like it comes to you as you're driving in the car listening to music. Where do you go from that process? What's the rest of that creative process look like for you?
Well, I think at that time I really was trying to turn it around, like what people thought about our beer.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say it was negative.
Sure.
Right. I think they make good beer. Right. Yeah. But everyone talked about our great food, and that just pissed me off and it's my food. Like the recipes they were using, my wife wrote.
Yeah.
And so there's a certain amount of pride that comes with that. However, I was trying to be a brewer, not a restaurateur. Turns out I'm a restaurateur, and I brew very little. Yeah. We have great brewers that do that work. But so the creative process at the time was really just like, how do we stick out? How do we stay relevant, especially at a time where are people going to come? They're not even allowed to come.
Yeah.
Or
you gotta get a reason to go line up or come order online and pick up a 4-pack or 2 4-packs.
Correct.
Make the drive over here and do it all, which is like you're spurring on a lot of action there. It's got to feel like something good for that.
Absolutely.
Because it's not like you're making enough beer to go put it in grocery stores that were still open at the time.
That's right. And there's a lot of great brewers. I mean, there's a lot of places to support that needed support. Like we all needed the help, and there's lots of choices in Grand Rapids, and so that was kind of the impetus for that. But now we have really creative, talented brewers. Patrick Lynch is our head of brewing ops. He came from Upland actually in July.
Yeah.
And then Nate,
I was talking to him before this. And his wife is works in sales for Shorts. And
she doesn't. Yeah, she's the director of sales.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, and
that's a funny dynamic there between production and sales. Like
they're a power couple. Truly. And
as he was saying, they can't work together because you can't have those conversations come home. But
that's right.
As long as you're working for other people, then it all works out.
When I was talking about hiring him and interviewing and all that process, I remember someone saying, "Oh, that's Carrie's husband. Well, if she married him, he must be good." And so, which says a lot about her,
sure,
right? And so, and he is. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, what he's done for us, I think we were at a point we made good beer, but we would have argued that we were good record keepers. But what he's proven is we sucked at record keeping. At least we didn't do it consistently enough to really get better.
Yeah.
And also make money. And so he's added some expertise it's helped us endure a very slow winter. And it seems like a change in people's movements. And set us up so as we get into our busier season, we have a really good handle on what we're doing, what it costs to do, and what we should be charging our distributor, which helps our distributor buy beer from us when he knows what to expect from us. And so, and M4, Mike and Megan Turf, they do an awesome job supporting us and getting our names out there. But it's way easier for them now that I'm not the one doing the conversating.
You're building out the talent. You got the people behind you that can actually help execute on the ideas. So what does that creative process look like now then?
So now it's,
as you all think about developing new beers, because you are still making these these more flavor forward beers. And you're even adding lagers into the mix, especially taking advantage of kind of slow wintertime, stuff to keep lagers in tanks a little bit longer and work on that program.
Yeah, we used to do like a spunding valve.
Yeah.
And so we turned a lager in like 19 days once, which I know every brewer who makes lagers is like, you motherfucker. But we did, and we had to because we had 4 fermenters.
Sure.
So now we're actually lagering, which allows us to recapture and propagate yeast.
Right.
And so those extra tanks really do make a big difference in the quality because we can give them the time they need.
Yeah.
And you can tell.
Sure.
And so, but it's a conversation. Nate is our lead brewer, and he is a young guy full of ideas.
Yeah.
Actually, Patrick and Carrie just had a baby in the last year, baby Nelson. And so,
Nelson.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And so his next baby is going to be Sabro. No. So baby Nelson, was born, and while he was gone, Nate's like, man, we should do a low ABV, like sessionable West Coast IPA with Nelson Sauvin hops and call it Baby Nelson. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And he's like, we actually have extra grain to do that. Let's do it. So we made it. I'm sure Nate probably talked to Patrick about the recipe and stuff like that. However, Baby Nelson is now going to be a series. We just brewing Baby Mo, which is Mosaic hops. Baby Citra, Baby Bro, I forget what that one is. But
Sabro.
Yes, thank you. It was Sabro. But it's turned into this thing. But then the reason why we've done it is our conversation with M4 is you can't have a mainstay cost X and expect me to sell it. So you need to develop a program where you can. And so now we're just looking at how we're brewing beer differently. So, all right, we brewed beer where I think people weren't super excited about.
You couldn't, if that was a core brand, you just couldn't sell it for the cost that you need to make it profitable.
Correct.
But if it rotates around and it's some sort of family brand like this, where it's always something new, then for whatever reason,
that helps.
Customers are willing to pay a little bit more for something that might not show up again just because it's this kind of one-off or part of this brand family.
Correct.
That's an interesting psychology of sales.
Well, but in that, volume helps. Like if we can get to a point where the volume will make sense. So we're working towards that, and which this brand is, it's less grain. We're learning different ways to approach. Well, it's a clear beer, so it's a hazy instead of a hazy, less hops. So we're able to get to market now at an okay price, which is acceptable to our distributor, and so that's been a huge part of our creative process now. Is really like, how can we do this in a way that's efficient so that we can get to market and be more profitable? Yeah. Because everybody makes hazy beer, and there's a lot of good ones.
Sure.
And so how's my hazy beer better than, and like our cans are cool. Which these are all basically most of these cans came out in 2020. Yeah. Like all the art. I think there's like 30 or 40 new brands in 2020 and like 25 or 28 in 2021. And so 2022, we were out of PPP money, so we stopped spending $500 a label in cans. And so now we're, a little bit different approach. Have a series now. As we're doing is changing the color of the label. So that first Baby Nelson label, which is a killer West Coast, 5% IPA. It was green. We're doing the Pink Boots Society. We're doing that beer with the Pink Boots blend. It's a pink can, and so we're making with cryo pop hops. Mm-hmm. So Baby Pop. That's, so like they kind of the names kind of make the color, whatever. So, but we're able to take one piece of art and make it fit a bunch of different brands and not really change a whole lot. So that's just helping us save money. Yeah. But I think that's, today I had a conversation with Patrick. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're transferring. Before he showed up, I was very engaged in what was going on because I felt like I needed to be. Yeah. But now I'm really not a big part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Where I would have said before, like, well, they're brewing what I tell them to brew. I just don't tell them how to brew it.
Yeah.
And so did a lot of brewing during COVID, did a lot of brewing in 2021 out of necessity. But now that, now I'm kind of the warehouse bitch. We're inefficient. Everything we package leaves this space and goes to our warehouse, and then we order it back.
Yeah.
And so I'm the guy that does that.
Wasn't that a sign of success when you end up managing people rather than doing it all yourself, right? I mean, there's something to it. Like, I'll see if we can get some brewing details out of you here. Just
sure.
We'll dig in and see what we can find. Before we do that, from the rotatable pickup tube on Rogue Brewing's pilot brew house to the integrated hopbacks on Sierra Nevada's twin prototyping brew houses, SS Brewtech has taken technology they invented, working with world-renowned industry veterans, and made them available to every craft brewer. To learn more about SS Brewtech's innovation list, head on over to ssbrewtech.com. Also, 100% recycled, 100% recyclable, and reusable PackTech handles are the sustainable solution to handle your craft beer. PackTech has been a leading producer of secondary packaging for the craft beer industry for over 30 years, and their handles are found across the globe. By fully embracing the principles of circular economy, PackTech helps customers meet their own ambitious, sustainable goals. 100% recycled, 100% recyclable, and reusable. PackTech is the sustainable packaging solution for your craft beer. Order free samples today. Call 541-461-5000. That's 541-461-5000. And Berkeley Yeast, the creators of Tropics Yeast, which produces massive notes of guava and passion fruit, now bring you Thiol Boost. Berkeley Yeast's Thiol Boost is pure liquid thiol precursors that take Tropics to the next level. Add it to the fermenter when you pitch the yeast and prepare yourself for tropical fruit nirvana. The concentration of precursors is the same in every batch of Thiol Boost, so you can predictably tune the level of tropical flavor by adjusting the dosage. Mention this podcast and get 15% off your next order. Berkeley Yeast, ordinary yeast made extraordinary. So yeah, let's talk about some brewing details. We'll see what we can get out of you. I know you're not that far away from the brew house these days.
Sure.
Even if you may take a more organizational approach. When you're brewing a 5% West Coast style pale ale, IPA, whatever you want to call it, down there, how do they start building a recipe about this? Do you think about it in language terms, or do you think about, like, how do you articulate what you want a beer, to be? And then how do you start translating that into an actual recipe?
I think I will talk about a beer I had.
Sure.
Right. And nuances of the beer that I, like, how did they get this? Especially when we were doing like the fruited sours.
So it comes from context to other beers that you've tasted, and you start thinking about what they're doing in that one, and that becomes the jumping off point.
Yes.
Okay.
So like there's a couple of fruited sours that I've had, and I'm like, man, that tastes like candy. Right? It's like I taste the fruit, but it's like a candy fruit. It's not just right blueberry, blackberry, whatever. How did they do that? And so we started to, well, I would do this. I think this is how, and so, and also conversation. Some people are like open book, right? Other people not so much, but so we started to play with it, and then we started to make them, And so when we talked about like the baby Nelson, it was really more about how do we honor Patrick and his wife, and celebrate the fact they had this child, and make something cool. And so we also, in that time, we started to look at what was in the tap room and what was happening. Like, we allowed sales to kind of dictate that a little bit. Mm-hmm. And we don't see people pulling the hazy handle as much as they used to.
Really?
People, I think that people are missing clear beer.
Even here in Michigan.
Huh. Clear, non-adjunct, 4-ingredient.
Don't they know that style is dead? I mean, I thought, no.
we made a brown beer, just an
Bell finally releases Hazy Hearted, and now you're saying that it's going out of style.
That's a big ship.
Yeah,
it's a big ship to turn towards haze.
Sure.
So I think we let the taproom sale dictate what we want to make or what we should make, and then I know
that sounds kind of crass, but I actually think that makes a lot of sense from a brewery perspective, because I mean, we think about it. We look at the numbers of what people download, what people read on our website, and like, you can think, oh, we're just trying to like play to the crowd, but I mean, you're a business. That's exactly what I mean, if what you're making isn't connecting with people, then you're not doing it right, are you? I mean, you can suffer for your art, but I mean, at the same time, like, you want to make people happy, and you want to make beer that is resonating with people and that they want to buy from you, and in a place and environment that they want to buy it from you. So it's not, yeah, it doesn't, it's not necessarily crass when you look at it at that perspective, and
Correct.
you want to respond to those things. So yeah, what have you been seeing then around that?
Well, I'll say this: I don't drink pastry stouts. I don't drink fruited fruited IPAs either. I don't drink that, but we make them,
Yeah.
and so we had this disconnect when we first started from what we wanted to drink. We had to disconnect between what we wanted to drink and what people wanted to drink, and like you just said, you don't want to die for your art. Let's make what people want to drink so that we can pepper in the things that we like, so we have something in the tap room that we can drink too.
Right.
And man, 10 years ago it was, big bombers of 14%,
Sure.
you know what I mean? Coconut, vanilla, cocoa nib, all that crap. Now it's, a PBR and some whiskey. Like, it's just, I'm also almost 50.
Yeah.
And so it just doesn't work with me as much like it did. And I'm here a lot, and I'd be 400 pounds.
Sure.
And so we're looking at what people want and making that, but also it's got to be fun for us too. And so, that's where lagers came in for us.
Yeah.
We're still doing maybe towards pale, like we're adding hops and stuff and adjuncts to those lagers. I just showed you art for our lager that we put corn in. And so, those are the beers that we want to drink. And we really think that when you come in, you might have a skosh 5-ounce pour of 5-hour stout, 10% coconut vanilla, sticks to the glass, right? But you're probably going to get 2 pints of a light, easy drinking beer. And that's different things to different people, but
It's such a funny dynamic like that. And I see that all the time. I mean, amongst beer people, just beer nerds out there drinking, like, there's that, they're taking samples of high gravity beers, and they've got their sidecar of lager right next to it, because you got to have something refreshing to cut through all of that kind of, big flavor and sweetness. But, we've actually been talking quite a bit this year about this interesting dynamic amongst consumer behavior in tap rooms, and that people are ordering more and more lower gravity beers in the tap room on draft.
yeah,
And they're buying more high gravity beer to go and drink at home.
yeah.
And it's changing, normally you can come up, I mean, years past, you might have had a pretty consistent, like, we're going to put this much into draft, we're going to put this much into package, across the lineup, for a brewery this size. But now, you've got to change that dynamic, where if you're brewing a lager, you want that much more for draft in the tap room, and you don't need to package that much, versus the double IPA that you're just going to sell little tasters of in the tap room, but you're going to sell much more in package. And so, it's changing the way the brewers have to think about the format and the occasions that people have for drinking a lot of these beers.
I would agree 100%. And I'm trying to be a masterful business person. And so in that, I'm reading trends and talking to folks like you, and hearing a lot of people echo the same sentiment, which is everyone wants to just drink low ABV beer. I can remember, again, like 5-10 years ago, there were breweries that bragged none of their beer was under 6%, where now you have Archival up the road, like all their beers are under 6%. I mean, there might be one or two, but I mean, they're making really traditional European style beer, and it's really good. I've joked with them. I was like, hey, when you want to make money, let's make a hazy beer together. And they're like, F off. But like, they're sticking to their guns and they're doing it.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. I respect that a ton. I've been chasing sales for 6 years because I've had to on a certain level.
Yeah.
And like, man, we are so much better today than we were even a year ago in terms of what we have of a team.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm excited about the next year. But we just hang out and talk about what sounds fun.
Sure.
It should be fun.
And on a 10 barrel system here, you can take some risks,
Absolutely.
you can, there are some things you can, do multiple turns of and push out there in a bigger kind of way, but you can also make something that can, hang out in the tap room for a little while and, never needs to go beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Explore some of these ideas.
So if we want to be in the market, so that's a different approach, like we talked about getting that price point. So we're looking at how we're making the beer and how can we meet that price point. And we just did it with Prague Underground. And so we just sent 20 barrels of Prague into the market, which is the most we've sent at any one time.
Yeah.
And great. And it's awesome. The packaging is cool. We've been developing this brand since it won a best label a couple years ago, USA Today. And but we couldn't, we won and they were like, yeah, we can't make that beer because it's, takes too long at all these things. So now we're in a position where we can take advantage of this really cool accolade, which is really a bunch of people online voting. That doesn't mean a whole lot, except for people care enough to vote. And we're sending enough in volume to make that price point, right? And then same thing that dictated the baby series, which the cans are gonna have like a dad joke on it, which is kind of cool. So that's dictating that because we know that we can get to market at the price point that we've been asked to hit. And so that will lead to hopefully more sales of that style. And we're proud of that beer. Yeah. So that's kind of dictating right now what we're doing. We've never had more beer on in the tap room in terms of options. We have a pretty healthy list it's very rounded. I don't know. And I think that serves us. But where we started and how we made beer and where we're at, completely different approach. And when the Fibonacci, all that stuff, that was because I was forced to do it. I was the only one that was really pushing the brand at the time. Yeah. I mean, we had like 5 employees. I was a volunteer. Basically, I wasn't paying myself. And my brewer was like, please don't pay me. I'll just volunteer too. And so, because of everything that was happening in the world. And so, so I spent a lot of time thinking like, how do we stay relevant in a time where, and so
did you laid yourself off then?
I didn't have a formal conversation with myself. Like no letters were written, but I told my wife, I'm not going to be taking an income for a while because I don't know what to expect. Yeah. But I mean, we had other, it was okay. So, how we did it and how we do it are very different. I was less open to other people's ideas through in 2020, and open book to ideas. Like I'm way open because I trust the people that we have back there to do a really good job, and I trust that it's a good business decision that's leading what they're doing. Yeah. And so,
how do you communicate this? I mean, because you've cut the same. Or you have customers all along. Yes. And, you go through some changes that can look pretty significant, from herbal inspired beers that, are all kind of quirky and intentionally, out of the mainstream to then pivoting into, hazy and sweet, beers that are, quite a bit different than that. And then now, of course, moving into smaller hoppy beers and lagers. I mean, these are a lot of transitions along the way. How do you communicate that with the folks that are City Built customers?
Social media. Our social media lady is killing it, and so we use that in the tap room. I mean, we had a conversation in here yesterday about people are upset that when they order a particular beer, Fluffy Unicorn, that it comes in a can. And they feel tricked if they all of a sudden grab a can and put off and then followed it up with, well, I would be upset. And I'm like, well, how are you saying it? Well, I tell them, well, it's going to be in a can. I was like, well, hold on. That sucks. I don't want it. However, if you say, man, we brewed this beer and back sweetened it with a bunch of pineapple puree and pineapple concentrate. And if we put this in kegs, it separates. And we got to shake the kegs every 30 minutes. This is the best way to deliver this beer is out of this can because it's the exact amount of puree that we want and concentrate mixed in with the IPA and vanilla and all your crap we put in there. sell it like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh. And so, especially recently, because I think the times dictate it, my mantra to our staff is like, stop being an order taker.
Yeah.
People don't remember an order taker. People remember someone who they encountered who's excited about X, whatever X is.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be letting them tell you what they want. You should be telling them what they should be drinking. And then if they choose something else, give it to them. But they might buy them both. And so, and as a formal sales guy, I have lots of conversations with them about, how we approach someone at the bar. And I'm older than most of those people. And so there's a little disconnect, I think. So there's got to be room for discussion for what's comfortable for everybody. And I know it's different than it was, for me. And I tend to be not aggressive, but forward.
Yeah.
And so, but that's how I think that we should be communicating, and we're creating and adding and removing the staff that aren't okay with that idea. We want, if we're going to be here, our servers do well. And so if you're going to be here, then you're going to do it how I think we should do it. And you'll benefit. They make more money when they sell that way. My wife is my wife does everything here. Her business card says Swiss Army wife because she has all the tools. And so, but she really prefers to just be a server and not in charge. However, if you order a beer from her, you're drinking 5 hour, or you're drinking, Fifth Street Hooligans, which is one of her favorite. It's a hazy beer.
Yeah.
And so like, if you open the window, you're drinking that beer.
Yeah.
She's going to sell you that beer. And like, we tell her, just pick a beer you like, sell the crap out of it. Because you're trying to create an experience.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of how our approach is. We rely on our staff to really share, our excitement. Patrick does a great job of tooling, giving them the tools. Mm-hmm. When we release a beer, they get an email. It comes with a sheet, comes with all the details, 3 points to consider or talk about. And so we really we try to arm them as best we can so that they can explain, why a beer is in a can and not in a keg. Mm-hmm. The reality is we had no tap handles to give that beer. And I was like, let's just put it in cans and send a bunch into distribution. And, it usually goes pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so I was like, let's just do it that way. But it was going slow because they weren't selling it right.
Yeah.
Like you can't apologize how we do things. There was a time we had no clear IPA, and it was a mistake. We just missed.
Yeah.
And there was like 5 hazy beers, and everyone's complaining. And I'm like, why are you complaining about something that we can't fix tomorrow? How about, let's just say you have a good idea and we brew a West Coast IPA, which we did, but you're not going to get that beer for 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks. So if there's no room for it, it's going to wait. So how about you pick a hazy that you love and get rid of it, And so, and so that's kind of our way of handling that.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I've actually been thinking about it. When we went to Belgium last year, so much beer is served in package in bars, in cafes, and that's just a normal way. Draft is actually just less common. It's a very accepted way to serve beer in package. And, America is tilted so draft heavy for whatever reason that we view that as fresher and better. It doesn't have to be. I was at the beer bar Torst in Brooklyn last year, and I mean they had cans of Suarez lagers in cans at the bar, and I was looking. I was like, 16 ounces at that $10 a can is actually less than a lot of their draft beers right now. I'm like, it's actually a smart economic move to just buy the can. So I drink a few cans of Suarez lager right there, and
they make good beer.
It's fantastic, and but it's all at the same time. The beer servers there are all smart and engaged.
$10 for a can. That's wild.
It's
I guess New York.
It's New York City. Yeah.
My buddy owns a bar in New York, and I guess I'm not surprised.
Yeah. No, I mean the drafts were like 12. So, for 16 ounces either.
And Grand Rapids is mad. My beer is $7.
Hey, I lived in New York City for 10 years. I get it. Like everything's more expensive, but you also get paid more. And so the whole economy shifts in a whole different direction. All works together. It's okay.
So if you can work remotely in Michigan with a New York salary, you're killing it.
See, exactly. But somehow the companies are onto that too. And
Everyone's going back. I can't wait for people to go back to their offices because our brewery is downtown.
Yeah.
And downtown I can think of 2 different intersections that screwed up my day every morning. Right? Not really, but like just, why isn't this guy going or whatever? But there's so much traffic because people are going to work.
Yeah.
No more. It's wild. And so I'm excited for people to catch on that they are doing their laundry and hanging out. They're not on the computer all day.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and the happy hour crowd would
I
be
digress,
a good one to bring back for sure. Anyway, let's talk about big picture. What do you City Built over the last number of 6 years has gone through as you've mentioned a whole bunch of different phases. And you're now in this new phase that's 6 or 7 months old with a new director of brewing and and trying to take this approach and also but dealing with this weird year that has not panned out in the same way that people thought. Like we didn't see the post-pandemic bounce that everyone was predicting, and this winter has been really quiet, and it's it's pushing a lot of brewers in different directions, and some folks are deciding that this is the time to leave the business, and other folks are trying to pivot and just make things work, and as you go through this phase and in this next, chapter for City Built, what do you hope to achieve? Where would you like to be in 5 years? What would you like City Built to be known for? And, what's the ultimate vision for what City Built can be?
So you talked about not the bounce back, and there's some industries that have, right?
Yeah.
But beer is people's tastes are changing. Like there was a moment where I was like, yeah, we don't make whiskey or seltzer, so we're screwed. I mean, I don't believe that, but I mean, that's where I feel people are. So, but now I think, man, people are done with seltzer for the most part, unless it says Truly or White Claw and it comes in a sleek, and I can get it by the 30 pack or whatever they come in. And so
our millennial office staff has gone through their seltzer phase and they're already over it. Right. Like there was a time 2 years ago where, everyone, if we had leftover seltzer, they would grab it and take the extra samples home. And now it's like, it's hard for us to even give it away. Like they've just gone through that and now it's just not as cool anymore.
It's wild how fast that went.
Yeah.
Yet, now it's like, canned cocktails, right? Everyone wants a long drink or whatever. And we're, my manager's been arguing that I get a distiller's permit, and I don't want to, but it's stupid to not. Yeah. And so I'm in the process of doing it. I don't want to be a distiller. I'll be a blender.
Sure.
And so that's part of our plan. We're in the process of completely changing our menu and going Creole, which I mentioned. I'm excited to see what our chef is able to do. I can tell he's excited, which likely you get better stuff when someone's excited about what they're doing. And he was already good. And so it's fun to see him flex in the kitchen. We're hoping to grow from, we've been doing like 600 barrels a year-ish, which had grown from like 300 or 400. And then 2020, we had tons of momentum. 2020 was shaping up into one of our best years yet, and then everything stopped. And so my hope is to hit 1,500 to 1,700 barrels of beer this year. I don't think I want to grow out of a 5,000 barrel. I don't know that I want to be bigger than that.
Right.
I really want to serve my community. We're very much engaged in a few different nonprofits in Grand Rapids. They tend to be associated with land or parks or schools. I used to be a teacher, and so I have a heart for teachers, and their job is hard, I think, and they don't always aren't necessarily compensated with for the care, attention that they give to our kids who are the next leaders, And so we had a party last year where we raised $28,000 or $27,000 for Grand Rapids School Foundation. Mm-hmm. So we want to be able to give more.
Sure.
Which I'm excited about our party this year, which is our anniversary party and for the benefit of them. And we closed down a bridge. It's called Bridge Blast.
Yeah.
So I really want to become, a better business, entrepreneur. Patrick's really created an environment where there's a lot of, we can see, right? And so, man, what better decisions can we make that'll help us not be one of those breweries that goes up for sale, which there's a ton.
Yeah.
Even locally, there's a lot of, you hear the talk. And so it's just sad.
Yeah.
There's family behind every one of those.
Sure.
Those are bummer situations for people who had a dream and have to shift. And so I think that we want responsible growth. I mean, I think every brewery my size had to grow this past year and a half, and I feel like we right-sized. Fortunate that we didn't have a bigger space because I was hungry to buy more, but we didn't.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to build out this other space, and also, so I was like, you know what? This is what fits. Let's do that, and it's not perfect, but it's enough. And so I feel fortunate that that's how it worked. I think that was just kismet and good fortune.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that brilliant, smart. I mean, I try hard, I smile a lot. Those are my two enduring qualities. But a
little bit of fear actually paid off in this regard. Then,
right. Yeah. And so where I have, we have friends that, man, they had a 4-barrel system and now they have a 15-barrel system and 60-barrel firms. I'm like, where's that beer going? We don't have the benefit of being this brewery that's been in the market for a long time. So if you grew to hope to keep up with your tap room and now you're stuck with all this extra space and now you're trying to get into the market and you weren't necessarily there previous.
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough space to be in. And there's no way I'm going to compete with even Jason at Vivant and Broadleaf because he's so much more efficient because of what he built, how long he's been doing it for.
And as we talked about on the podcast with him last week, he's going through the same questions, having to right size the brewery and getting rid of some of those 60-barrel tanks and getting 20s in so that, because the idea of brewing 3 turns into something that's going to go, into each tank that's going to go out into production, like it's just not happening like that, these days.
Not right now.
Yeah.
And so business side says, man, 2023 and maybe 2024 is gonna be really hard.
Yeah. And
so we need to really think about how we can do more with less, which is what we're doing around here, which is, man, it's sad to lose people. We built this business to build bridges, right? If you look at our logo, there's a bridge on it. We want to be bridge builders. You want to be connective. And when you aren't, and instead you're creating division by saying, hey, we don't have the hours and we really appreciate that this person does what we ask and you don't always. And so unfortunately you have to go. That's not a fun, we've made, there's been certain things that have happened in my trajectory of being at City Belt that I'm like, I'm really in the business now. And then another thing happens. I'm like, all right, I'm really in the business now, Then this past year we lost a brewer. We lost 2 salaried people. He was salaried too, but just in the front of the house, we lost 2 kitchen people who, their jobs here, so it supported their lifestyle. And man, that sucked. Those are all people I cared about. And so, but how do I take care of the people that remain so that we can be here for when we grow? So some of those people might come. Some of those people we were still already talking to. And so my thought is we're in a good spot. It's been a hard 90 days. I'm excited that dry January is over. We have some events planned for February to celebrate Winter Beer Fest.
Yeah.
We do the official unofficial, which is a party that we do the night before, and we invite all the brewers here. We'll close down a street, put a tent in it. We have 4 bands, which I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
We really have grown to enjoy throwing parties. In 2020, when I basically became the sole manager of their partnership, of taking over City Built. I wrote a business. I mean, I shared, here's my vision.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to do in 2020. And it was event-based sales. Well, what happened in 2020? Like no event-based, there was no events. I was barely a tap room. And so in 2021, we still had a weird environment. And so we had this tent across the street. Can you be in the tent? There's sides down. Like we're kind of breaking the rules, but whose tent is that? That's not our land. And so we really kind of lived in the gray, and we had a heater out there, and like we were just banging all January, all February, waiting. And then we could tell people want to be around. They aren't scared as they should be probably. And so we started doing summer beer, not festivals, but music in the park, Friday Night Lives, we called them. And we did one, and like 1,300 people showed up. And we're like, oh.
Yeah,
Pete, there's a demand. And so we did basically 8 of them that summer, and they weren't all 14. Like they basically went, that first one was like, that was the first show people had gone to in a long time.
Right.
And like, I'm on stage thanking everyone for being there, and I'm just watching people just hang all over each other. I'm like, oh, we're going to be like a epicenter for COVID. And it didn't work. It wasn't.
Oh, good.
It was not. And so after that, it was more manageable. It was like 500-600 people. But at the end of the summer, like that was event-based sales. And how did it work? Well, we had 8 days where we did like $150,000 in sales, and I'm like, oh, that's the way.
Yeah.
And so we're taking a break this year from that because the park is going to be under construction. They're redoing the entire park by establishing a tent across the street, which we paid for the tent, found some grants to help us pay for the tent during COVID. We established that people will show up. And so now as they work with this company to develop the park, we got a say. So we got to be a contributor to what they're going to do. And we said, well, that tent, we're probably going to lose it when it snows really hard. And I used to show up at 1 a.m. and shovel with like a roof rake. It was really like a long painter's pole with a squeegee at the end, trying to get the snow off the tent. And so what they said is they're going to build a pavilion across the street where the tent used to be. They're removing the parking lot, which it used to have cars in it, and now it's just like our hangout area. And it's going to have a stage and 60 amp service, and like they're going to bake a thing that'll help us.
Yeah.
Less people to do the events. Like it's way less work. I was building a stage every week.
Yeah. It'll feel a lot nicer to have all that infrastructure built right there to
absolutely.
Bring people in and turn it into a thing. And, of course people love going to sit outside, watch some live music, drink some beer.
There's a river right there.
And the idea that you can actually consume alcohol in some sort of way there and not feel like it's that typical, open container restriction thing. I mean, it's the way, that's, I think, one of the best outcomes of COVID is we realized that like people can safely consume alcohol without the government, getting too freaked out about where we do it and how we do it. And, people can be responsible about this kind of thing.
Agreed. Yeah. I think the social district saved our, to a certain extent, it saved us because we have 138 seats in our tap room. And typically we're not at capacity because we see less traffic.
Sure.
When we opened, we were always at capacity. However, in the summer, we have another 144 seats outside.
Yeah.
And there are days where I walk in the tap room and our servers look bored because there's no one in here.
Yeah, they're all outside.
And then you go in the kitchen and you see there's tickets all the way down the rail, all the way to the ground. And like servers are bored and the kitchen's getting their butts whooped, And so we had to change that, created a system.
Right,
we had to create a system. And so like, we're going to continue to lean into event-based sales. We find that's a good way for us to connect, not just with our community, the people who drink here, but with our community, our neighbors. We have 5 or 6 businesses, restaurants and I always check in with them. Hey, how'd it go? Did you see people, were people drunk and jerks or whatever? And they're like, dude, that's awesome. Yeah. People leave here because they aren't late. We're done by 10 o'clock. And then they are in this neighborhood, which this neighborhood historically has been undeveloped, dead. It was the next neighborhood to develop in terms of traffic.
Yeah.
And founders left. And it depressed. Founders went to the south side of town versus the north side. And in that neighborhood, this neighborhood didn't develop. Instead, the west side developed, which is wild because the west side has been like dive bars, and which is great. That's where I hung out. And so now it's high rent, which is wild. And so, but this neighborhood is now developing. We actually just got a new building owner, and they're building a 16-story building behind us. They're building a parking ramp in what's now just a flat surface. Mm-hmm. And so they're investing in the neighborhood. Right. It's not Spectrum Health anymore, but this hospital just built a big building. So our neighborhood is being populated.
Bringing more people to you. It's great.
Exactly. It's great. And so all those barriers that keep people out, you got a river, big hill behind us, and a highway that splits the city, that keeps people in now.
Yeah.
It's wild. And so we have a really great neighborhood. We're excited to be part of it. And so in terms of plans and goals, we really just want to make enough beer to make money and keep us all fed. We want to we want to become masterful at our craft in terms of being a brewer or a business owner. My general manager was like, do you want to be a brewer at home, or do you want to be a restaurateur who gets to brew sometimes? And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And so, our focus has changed quite a bit, as I've learned, which is how life works, right?
It's pretty much the story of every business. Well, keep building those bridges, and I think that's a great place to bring this to a close. G&D Chillers has partnered with 3,000 plus breweries around the country and offers 24/7 service and support. T&S Hop Oils gives your beer all the hop intensity with none of the astringency. AccuBrew gives brewers like you unprecedented insight into your fermentation process. ProBrew solutions are specifically designed to help you brew your beer. Old Orchard's craft concentrates have shipped to 46 states from right here in Beer City, USA. SS Brewtech has taken tech they invented working with industry vets and made them available to every craft brewer. PackTech handles are the sustainable solution to handle your craft beer. Berkeley Yeast's Thiol Boost is pure liquid thiol precursor to take tropics to the next level. If you've enjoyed this podcast and any others, go to beerandbrewing.com, click on that subscribe button, tell us that what we do matters, and that you, because we depend on your support to bring you conversations like this. Edwin, if people want to learn more about City Built, where do they find you guys?
Citybuiltbrewing.com, on Facebook at City Built Brewing Company, and then on Instagram at City Built Brewing. Awesome. Find all the things you need to see or know.
Fantastic. Well, it's been fun talking to you. Cheers.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. Learn more online or subscribe at beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.